This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so any questions, guys? Anyone, any questions before I get started? Anyone, any questions? So, on the day before, we were looking at what is a PaaS service versus what is an infrastructure as a service, and how do we really get started with, let's say, creation of a PaaS service out here. This is something that we were looking at. So, any questions in the direction? Anyone, any questions there? Good, please.
Um, how is the memory allocated to the service plan will share among the app services that are running under that plan? Is it
Good.
according to the or is it according to the websites that each app service hosting, or is it shares equally among all the app services?
A good question is that how does the app service plan accommodate, let's say, the memory to the app services that are running on top of it? So it completely depends upon the consumption power. So let's say that you have three different app services out here that is running on top of an app service plan. Azure will calculate what are the incoming requests for app service one versus two versus three, understand what is the utilization, and then allocate accordingly. It's not equal distribution, but it's going to, let's say, allocate, let's say, based upon a backend running algorithm as such out there. Does it answer your question?
Yeah. And one more question.
Mhm.
What is the exact difference between the app service and the virtual machine? The virtual machine is also a place in which we host data or things, right?
Mhm. Right, but the difference between an app service and a virtual machine is that a virtual machine is a pure infrastructure as a service, which means that if you are creating a virtual machine, you will have to take care of the operating system. You will have to take care of the software that is running on your, on, let's say, your virtual machine, and you basically need to take care and maintain all the runtime stack and all these things. Which means that let's say that you want to deploy a .NET application on your let's say virtual machine. So what you do is that you go into your virtual machine, log in, firstly install the IIS. After installing the IIS, you go and download all the software as is required. Like for example, you have a software called .NET SDK that you need to install so that you can run your .NET applications. You can install that. You have to install that. You'll have to maintain that, and then finally you'll have to take your code and put it inside the www root folder. On the other hand, app service is more like a ready-made solution. If I don't want to go ahead and, let's say, maintain all the softwares, I don't want to take the headache of, let's say, maintaining my operating system, we just go ahead, create the app service, take the code simply and deploy on top of it. That's it. So it's a ready-made solution, whereas your virtual machine is more a tailored approach. You'll have to maintain, you'll have to take that administrative overload out here as such. Yes, any more questions, guys? Okay, so let's get started. And yes, so just to give you again a basic overview, we are now going into app services out here, and when you create an app service, there are two things that I'm really talking about. One is the app service itself, the other is the app service plan. The app service plan out here as such. The app service is where your application is hosted, meaning all the HTML content and all these things, those are hosted out here. And the app service plan is the background compute, or is the background memory, which means that what really happens is that when you create an app service plan, Microsoft in the background just goes ahead, creates a virtual machine. App service plan here is nothing but a VM that is running in the background, which has all the softwares installed, and this is completely taken care by, let's say, the platform, which is Microsoft Azure. And this VM is hosted out of, let's say, a physical data center somewhere in the background, a physical machine somewhere in the background out here as such. So when you create a simple infrastructure as a service, this is where you're working on, wherein you have all the control to modify the things in the virtual machine and all these things out. But now Microsoft is packing all these things together and giving it to you as a PaaS solution, giving it to you as a PaaS solution out here, which means platform as a service out here. And you only get to maintain the code and a couple of settings on top of the app service that you do have out here. So let's go ahead, have it created. Let's see how it really works out again. So let's go there. I don't have any resource groups today. So let me firstly start with app service. I'll say create the app service. I'll just scroll down. I'll say create a resource group. I'll say app service RG. I'll just scroll down and it's asking me for what is the name of the app service. I'll say this is a demo app service ABC, something like this, so that the name is unique. Dot Azure Websites dot net. The DNS name is also handled by Microsoft. This is a fully qualified domain name of your application. So this is also handled by Microsoft right now. I'm not, let's say, really doing anything as such. I'm just going ahead creating a name and it's giving me a fully qualified domain name. I'll just scroll down. It's asking me how do you want to publish it. By default, I'll take a code. We'll talk about what is a Docker container and etc. I'll say .NET Core, something like this. I'll just scroll down. It's asking me what is the operating system you want, let's say, this app service to be created. Again, you have a limited option. When you create a virtual machine, you have, let's say, a lot of options out here. Like, for example, you had Windows 2019, 2022, 16, or you have Linux. In Linux, you have SUSE, you have Ubuntu. You have a lot of options out here as such. But when it comes to a PaaS service, since all these components are maintained by Microsoft, it's just asking you what kind of an operating system you need. Is it just Windows or is it Linux? I'll say Windows. I'll go for a location called EastUS2. And here by default, it is giving me a standard S1 size. But when you are working with a free trial account, the only size that you'll see here while creation is an F1 size out here. So I'll just go ahead, say a new plan. I'll say a demo plan. I'll say OK. I'll change the size here and I'll come down to a free tier size called F1. I'll say apply this out. I'll say next deployments. Here I am disabling everything. Networking, I'll just disable everything. Monitoring, also I'll disable everything. And I'll just go ahead with the creation of the same thing. I'll say no. I'll just go ahead say review and create this out here. So now I'm creating an app service that is based out of a free plan. So when I create the app service, inside the resource group, these are the two components that are created, the app service and the app service plan out here, wherein you have a limited control. And Microsoft just goes ahead, creates in the background. I'm talking about in the background, a virtual machine that is just representing your app service, or that is just an abstraction of your app service. All these things is something that you have no control on. All these things is something that you have no control at all. And here in this particular lay, you have a very limited control out here. And what is the control? Also, let me see that out here. So right now it's created the plan. So the first thing it created is the plan. So for example, I mean, to create an app service, the first thing that you need is a plan out here. And here Microsoft is telling it a server farm, another name for app service plan. And then it's telling demo app service web app and Microsoft.web/sites, which is nothing but your app service. I'll go ahead and I'll say go to the resource. And this is now a ready-made web server, which means that I don't really have to go. And Naga Joshna, do you have a question? I've muted you out. Do you have a question out here? Guys, if you do not have a question, please mute yourself. I do not want to, let's say, take a pause in the session, come and mute you out here as such. Please mute yourself if you do not have a question. Otherwise, please leave the session out here. If you're not able to mute yourself out there as such, please don't disturb the session. All right. So unlike a virtual machine, an app service is a ready-made solution out here, which means that I don't really have to go on top of this machine. I don't really have to go on top of this particular virtual machine, do IIS installation, install all install all the required softwares and etc. Keep it ready and then go ahead and, let's say, start my journey. And I don't have to do that. It's a ready-made approach, which means that I just get all these things out here. I just get all these things where I have a limited control. I don't have to install the IIS, and it's a ready-made running website already, which means that if I come here and if I say browse, this is going to open a new tab telling that your app service is now running, waiting for your content. So it's telling, okay, fine, the application is running. Please go ahead, start deploying your content. This is what you can do and all that stuff. Now, this is how it is now right now running. So, how do you deploy your own content? That's something that we will see by looking at something like WinSAP tool that we were doing the other day. But I'll continue with that. But here, until here, any questions? Anyone, any questions till here? Anyone, any questions till here that I can take?
Suresh, what is the difference between FTP and FTPS?
It's just the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. FTPS is
Okay, the
more a secure
security.
protocol. Yes, a secure protocol.
Okay, okay,
So you will have a tunnel that is, or you will have a secured layer that is established while you're transferring your data. So yes, you can go
okay,
for anything. You can go for FTP or you can go for FTPS. Shouldn't be an issue at all.
okay. Thank you.
No problem. Any more questions, guys? Anyone? Any more questions here? All right. So by default, Microsoft is giving me this particular website, which means that if I just take the link, give it to any one of y'all, you can see the similar content that you're into. And this is a HTTPS website, which means that even the security is handled by Microsoft only. I am not doing anything. I have not installed an SSL certificate. I have not done anything. And the security here is now handled by Microsoft. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make use of this particular, let's say, website and deploy my own content. When I do, when I say that, I just go ahead and download some sample HTML files. So I'll say download free HTML. I will go inside, let's say, this particular, let's say, HTML and some website out here for selling cars, car repair services, and all these things out. I'll just download this out, and once downloaded, I'll just go ahead and also extract the website out. Let me do a right click. Let's say extract all. So I've extracted all these things out, and inside which I have all these pages. Inside which I have all these pages out here telling what is my website and all these things out here. What I'm going to do is I'll just go ahead and try connecting with this particular app service. When I say connecting with this particular app service, I will do something called as an FTP, file transfer protocol. Very simple. File transfer protocol. Sorry, file transfer protocol is a simple mechanism to just go ahead and copy all your files from your local machine to a remote server. When I say remote server, in my case, it's an app service out here. So simply transferring the files from my local machine to this particular, let's say, app service out here is now called as an FTP protocol, file transfer mechanism protocol out here as such. This is the FTP protocol that I'm implementing out here. So how do I do that again? In order to do this, I will need a software called WinSCP installed on my laptop. And using that particular software, I can go ahead and transfer these files. Again, just to give you an overview, to download WinSCP, just go ahead and say WinSCP download. And from here, just hit the download button and you would get the exe file. Just go ahead and install it out. It's a very simple, very straightforward installation. Once you install it, just come here, say WinSCP, and I'll open up my WinSCP client, or I'll open up my WinSCP software, and in here it's asking me for the host name. So I'll go back into my app service. I'll get the FTP host name out here. So I'll copy the FTP host name. I will come back here, paste it here, and then I'll give you the username and password. Again, as I don't have any control on the username and password while I created, I will go ahead download something called as a publishing profile. So I'll download this out. This is going to give me a simple text document inside which I will have my user ID, I'll have the password and etc. Those credentials is something that I can have. So I'll just open this out, get my user ID and credential. So just scroll towards right and you have a username, you have a password. So I'll just get these things. So this is a username. I'm copying this out, going into my WinSCP portal, pasting this out in. Again, I'll just take this out, take this password, and paste it in and log in. Again, this is the error that you're going to get with a brand new app service. FTP connections are by default not allowed on any of the app service out there. So what I'll do is firstly I'll say okay, just come back into the app service, just scroll down under the settings, go into the configuration, and once I'm inside the configuration out here, I'll just say general settings. Here the FTP state here is only FTPS allowed. I'll say all allowed. I'll say save this out, and once this is updated, I can go ahead and give it a retry. So the very first time if you're trying an FTP, please make sure that your FTP state is all allowed, which is super okay, which is fine. I'll just say login back, and now it's trying to start a session with that particular app service, and yes, I am inside this particular directory called site and root, where it is telling this is the root folder where you are into. Inside, sorry, inside that, Microsoft has helped me by placing a file called hostingstart.html. It's This is the default file what Microsoft has already given to me. Now what I'll do is I'll just delete this file out. Okay, so there's no content inside your app service right now. There is nothing which is running inside your app service. So if you come here and try to again browse that particular app service, it will go inside that particular folder, look to see if there are any files. There are no files. It's coming back with an error message telling that you don't have the permission to see this directly, meaning there are no files. You literally cannot see this over the internet. This is something that needs to be browsed. This is something that I cannot really see inside the folder out here. What I'll do is I downloaded my entire code. Let's copy this link. I'll go back into my WinSCP tool, and the left hand side is my local machine. This is all my local machine. It's telling what do you want to copy from your local to the remote server. Local, and I'll say this is the remote server or the app service. So what all do you want to transfer? I'll just click on this particular bar. I'll remove this, paste the directory that I copied, say browse. Okay, sorry, say okay. This is all the directory. I'll just drag everything, copy everything, and drop. So it's a simple drag and drop mechanism that I'm doing. Or you can just simply go ahead, do a copy and paste, even that's okay. But I am now uploading all these files from my local machine, sorry, from my local machine, which is on the left hand side, to the remote server that is running in a location called ECS2, let's say on the Azure portal out here. And once deployed, again, it'll take about like 2 or 3 minutes of time for this entire operation to move, because the reason being the file size is, let's say, huge. So it's trying to copy everything from my local machine to that particular remote server. And once that's done, we can also check how the application really works, or let's say what is the working mechanism of the application out here as such out there. Again, it's a very simple lift and shift approach. I haven't gone ahead into, or I haven't logged into, let's say, the app service and changed anything, any softwares, etc. Nothing. I have a very limited control on the app service, using which I'm logging into it. I'm taking the files, uploading it into the destination. That's it. This is what I'm doing. And once it's done, let's see how the website, or how, let's say, the app service behaves out here as such. Yes, any questions still here? This is going to take around a minute or so. So any questions till then?
Yes, sir. I have one question, sir.
Go please.
Sir, where did we get username and password? Can you tell again, please?
Sure. So username and password is not under our control. So you have to go to the app service. You have to say get publishing profile. If you click on this, sorry, if you click on this, a file will be downloaded for you on your sorry, on your local machine. And if you open this out, it's called a publishing setting file. If you open this out, in this file, if you just scroll towards the right, you have a lot of settings and all these things out, and as a part of which you have something called username and password. These are the two things that I'm really looking at.
Yes, sir.
So we just copy this and use this for our settings out here as such. Does it answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, got it.
Yes. Any more questions, guys?
Sir, in the run stack, you have selected the .NET,
Hmm.
sir, but you have placed an HTML
Correct.
file.
So in the runtime stack, you can literally select any of the application and place a HTML file. Reason being, HTML is already in an XML format. So the server doesn't need any particular software or any different tool to understand what HTML really is. So I've just taken .NET Core because, in the coming classes we'll be looking at how to deploy a .NET application and all these things. So that's the reason I'm going in that direction. But you can literally take any runtime stack. So you can literally take any runtime stack and deploy your direct HTML out there. Yes, any more questions, guys? Again, if you go back, it's almost done updating this out. There are a couple of files more it needs to upload. So it's taking the residue, or it's taking the remaining files and uploading it out, let's say, into your app service. And now it's telling, okay, fine. I've copied all, let's say, your files from, let's say, the local machine into the app service out here. So let me go back into my app service. Let's hit the browse button once again. And here we go. We have a website right now that is working. Again, you have these services and all these things out. Again, if I was a HTML developer, I could just go ahead, develop this out according to my own wish, and I could have just gone ahead and, let's say, created my own website out here as such. This is how I can go ahead and create something out here out of, let's say, literally scratch. Like, I just created, let's say, the app service, did no installation. Unlike a virtual machine, in a virtual machine, I had to log in. I have to, let's say, install IIS out there. Then, let's say, disable the internet security there. Then download the files. Then upload it here, and so on and so forth. But in, let's say, app service, I'm just going ahead. creating the app service, connecting to it, deploying to it. It's a ready-made approach out here as such. And that's the reason I was telling that I only have a limited control on the app service and on the app service plan out here. But the backend running machine and the server is something that I do not have absolutely no control at all out there as such. Again, you can also, let's say, browse that particular website. This is a HTTPS website. Again, I haven't done any security enforcement. It's all taken care by Microsoft out here as such. Yes. Any questions here?
Sir, I have one doubt.
Go ahead, please.
Sir, while we create web service, right, sir, we choose
Correct.
some basic plans.
Hmm.
We choose some basic app service plans
Correct.
called F1. Under our requirements, can we scale up to another plans?
Yes, you can scale up to another plan. You can definitely do that scale out, scale in action. We'll also talk about that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Yes. Any more questions, guys? Anyone? Any more questions? All right. So let's see, how do I approach the same thing via automation? Like, meaning I've created an app service. I created an app service plan firstly, and then I went ahead and created an app service out here, and all these were manually done. Now I want to approach the same thing, let's say via an ARM template. Now, how do you go ahead and do an ARM template for the same? Something that we look at. Again, I'll just open my VS Code and take a new folder out here. Say open a folder. I'll just create a new folder out here saying app service ARM template. Select folder. Again, in order to initialize an ARM template, I'll just say Control N, select language. I'll say Azure Resource Manager template, and this will now load the schema for the Azure Resource Manager template out here. And now what I'll do is I'll say ARM, and then let's say that a particular exclamation in order to load the basic definition out here. And earlier, what we used to do is that we used to come into the resources, start typing in ARM hyphen storage, or start typing in ARM hyphen virtual network, or ARM hyphen Windows virtual machine, and all these things out. Now I want to create two resources. One is the app service. The other is the app service plan. Now, can anyone tell me what is the resource that I should be creating first, and what is the resource that I should be creating next? Is it app service that I need to create first and then the app service plan, or is the app service plan that I need to create first and then the app service on top of it?
App service plan.
App service first
Thanks.
and తర్వాత
App service first and app service plan. Again, very important for you to create. Again, that's what I was telling again and again, is that for you to create an app service, you need a plan. Without a plan, you cannot create an app service at all. In the very first place, without an app service, without an app service plan, you cannot create an app service. The first thing that you need is a plan. Only then you can go ahead and create an app service on top of that particular plan out here. So what I'll be doing is I'll come into my resources. I'll say ARM hyphen. I'll look for plan. That's what it's telling me. So ARM hyphen plan. Enter this out. I now have I now have the entire plan out here. Telling here, it is telling that what is the name of the plan. What what is the type here? It's telling sorry, I'm so sorry about that. So it's telling what is the type, and in the type it has something like Microsoft.web/server farms. Server farm is the name of the app service plan, or server farm is, let's say, another name for app service plan. Instead of calling app service plan, Microsoft calls it by using a terminology called server plan or server farm. Sorry. So here it's telling Microsoft.web/server farm, the API version, the location, the SKU. It's telling what is the plan. Like, do you want an F1? Do you want a B1, D1, S1? What is the plan? Tags and the properties. In the properties, you have something called name out here again. So what I'll do firstly is, in order to make sure my template is usable, I'll introduce a parameter. So I'll say enter a new parameter. I'll say app service plan name. I'll say this is a string. This is okay. Here, instead of just giving the name, I'll say brackets parameters app service plan name. This is one place that I'll change. Also, I'll come here. Sorry. Also, I'll come here and say parameters app service plan name again. Here, location. I'll just take a location called East US2. Plan size is F1. Tags, I don't need this. I'll delete this out. This is my app service plan. So if I click on this one, it'll just show me that I'm creating an app service plan out here, also known as server farm and etc. is what it's telling me. I'm going to do this. I will just, let's say, go ahead, put a comma here. Let's come down. I'll say ARM hyphen web hyphen site or web hyphen app. Now it's saying okay, fine. Now you want to create something called as a web app out here as such. In here, again, it's asking me the name of the web app. Again, this is something that I would like to parameterize. I'll say app service name, and in here, instead of telling it as web app one, I'll say it is parameters app service name. This is a place that I'll change. Type here, I'll still put this as okay. There's, I think, an additional bracket here came up. Okay. Say parameters app service name. Good. Type here, I would still say it is Microsoft.web/sites. This is something that I'm not changing. Location should be the same location where your app service plan is. Your app service and your app service plan cannot be in a different location. So I'll say again East US2. Just scroll down, and tags, I don't need this, so I can remove this out completely. And very importantly, a dependency. Since an app service needs an app service plan to be created, I'm asking my template that please create this particular resource only if the app service plan already exists. So it's telling okay, fine, depends on what I'm telling the resource ID of this particular server farm, and here by it's giving a default name. I can just change this and declare a parameter here. Parameters app service plan name. Again, here it's telling properties, the name of the web app. I'll change it to parameters web app name or app service name. And again, the server farm ID. It's telling okay, fine, what is the ID of the app service plan that I need to create this in. Again, I'll just remove this out. I'll say parameters app service plan name. So I'm just calling my parameters accordingly so that the template is reusable. I don't want to create, let's say, a template that is hard coded. I want to create a template that is reusable so that I can reuse it again and again. Save this out, and I'll save this as a JSON file, and I'll just go ahead and give something called app service.json, giving a name out here, and this is my template out here as such. So if you look at it, I created firstly a plan by typing in ARM hyphen plan, changed a couple of properties, made sure the template is reusable by introducing some parameters. After that, I put a comma and I said app service hyphen web hyphen site or hyphen web hyphen app, web app. And here I got my entire web app out here. And here also I parameterized a couple of things. I said what is the type, and I also gave a location out here. I gave a depends on telling what does it really depend upon. In my case, it depends upon an app service plan. And if I click on this button, I have my website and my app service plan that is getting created as a part of this template. Again, in order to deploy this out, I'll just go ahead into the Azure portal and start deploying it out. But before doing that, any questions still here? Any questions on the template? Does anyone have any questions with the template? Anyone? Any questions with the template till here? Are we good? Anyone? Any questions with the template that I can take?
We haven't assigned any runtime stack here.
I'm sorry, can you come again, please?
Here we haven't assigned any runtime stack.
We don't have to. Good question. We don't have to assign the runtime stack. By default, it's going to take a .NET stack out here as such.
Okay.
Good question. Yes, we do not have to define the runtime stack. It will by default take the .NET stack out here as such out here. So let me go ahead and go into the Azure portal. I'll say deploy a custom template. I'll say build your own template. I'll say load the file. I'll just go into the, let's say, the folder that I've saved this particular file in. Not this one, sorry. I'll copy this, or I'll call this particular file here. I'll say save. I'll use a new resource group if needed. I'll say this is a ARM app service RG. I'll use the location as ECS2. Here it's asking me what is the app service plan name. I'll say ARM plan 01. It's now telling, let's say, what is the app service name. I'll say ARM app service ABC 000, something like this. And I'll start reviewing and creating this out here as such. Again, since the template being reusable, I can use this template any number of times to create any number of app services out here as such. And I'll say create this out. And this is going to go ahead and do the same thing, but it's better in a way that if you, let's say, want to go ahead and, let's say, deploy a new app service, you don't really have to again go into the Azure portal, do a lot of things, and then create a new app service out here as such. You don't really have to do that. You can just simply go ahead. So you can just simply go ahead, create a template out, take the template, and deploy this out, so that it can go ahead and create a new instance of an app service plan and an app service out here as such. So now it's creating the app service plan, and after which it goes ahead and creates the app service out here as such, and done. So now same thing, an app service plan, and in a couple of minutes, if you refresh this out, you'll also have the app service that is running inside this out here as such. Yes, any questions that I can take till you? Anyone? Anyone? Any questions that I can take till you? Okay, a couple of assignments that I want you all to write it down. This is something that we need to try. Very firstly, before I give the assignment, one quick question. Can I have multiple app services running as a part of the same plan, guys? Can I do that? Can I
Yes.
have,
Yes,
yes,
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
definitely. So
Yes, sir,
let's say
definitely.
I have one app service. Sorry, I have one app service plan, and I want around three app services that are running on top of it. Three app services that are running as a part of this plan, and I want us to create all these resources by using an ARM template. So using an ARM template, I want us to go ahead, create one app service, three app services, and this should be reusable. And I want us to use copy index, the copy index template function. This is something that we need to use in order to, let's say, iterate over the app services and create new app services out here. This is something that I intend us to, or I intend to use out here. This is the first assignment. Second thing is that, can I just create one app service as a part of one app service plan using PowerShell script? Using a PowerShell again, script should be reusable. When I say script should be reusable, I want you all to, let's say, check whether the app service plan already exists. If not, then go ahead and create it. Check whether the app service plan exists and all these things out. Check whether the resource group exists, and if not, then go ahead and create this out here as such. Again, the basic commandlets for this one is just go to Google and just say new hyphen az app service plan. The first thing that you need to look at is there documentation for it on how do you create an app service plan. What are the examples? It's asking the resource group name, it's asking what is a plan name and all these things out. So it's just the example out here that you need to look at. The number of workers that you see here, just put it as one. We'll talk about what are the number of workers and all these things out. But when you are creating it, please put the number of workers as one. Worker size is small. This is super good enough for me. And then after this, you need to look at new hyphen az web app, wherein in the examples, this is going to tell you how do you create a web app and how do you link it to a plan. These are the two commands that I want you all to, let's say, look at. I want you all to reuse this out. When I say reusability, there should be if else logic out here that is controlling all these things out, and this will help you, let's say, reuse it out. So please check out how do you reuse your PowerShell scripts out there, and based on this we can, have more discussions on how do you automate your scripts and all that stuff. Again, since you're using a free trial accounts, and since I am under the assumption that everyone is using a free trial, if you are already on a pay as you go, no restriction, but in a free trial, make sure to create your services in North Central US. You have East US, or you have West US 3 or something like this, or West US 2 or West US 3. There's something that I don't really remember. But one of these three locations is somewhere that you're allowed to go ahead and create your app services and etc. So please create your resources accordingly out here as such. Yes, any questions, guys? Any questions that I can take before I can close? Anyone? Any questions?
So difference between the scale up and scale out.
Can you please come again, please?
So scale up and scale out. So what is the main difference?
Your voice is a little weak. Yeah, are you asking difference between a scale up and a scale down?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we'll look at those things in a scaling operations out here. We'll have a separate session for what is auto scaling, scalings, and all these things out. We'll look at then on what do you mean by, let's say, scale up, scale out, and all these things out.
Yes, okay.
Yes. Any more questions, guys? All right, that's it from mine then. Thank you. Have a good day ahead. Please try these assignments out, and we'll discuss on, let's say, what are the errors and how do you resolve those things out here as such. Thank you, and have a great day ahead. Thank you.